change is something that we get to expect of each other. So then to be able to change and know that we can change and evolve inside of our relationship is really freeing.
What do you think is the main reason for those gravitational pulls back to monogamy?
We are more faceted and deeper and accepting of the depths that we can go to individually and together.
I kind of pride myself on being pretty good at spotting non-monogamous people.
Did you think we were non-monogamous?
My name is Abby.
And my name is Liam, and you are listening to the Evolving Love podcast.
In this podcast, we deep dive into the topics of non-monogamy and relationships, drawing from our experiences of being consensually non-monogamous for over a decade.
Whether you're monogamous, polyamorous, curious, or anything in between, we invite you to join us for this conversation.
Let's begin. On today's episode, we're joined by our dear friends, Andrew and Christina. Together for 15 years and parents to 3 children, Andrew and Christina's relationship is a wonderful example of consciously choosing monogamy.
At Evolving Love, we focus heavily on the ins and outs of open relationships, but we are not crusaders for everyone being non-monogamous. We truly believe that everyone should structure the relationship that is right for them, whether it is monogamous, polyamorous, or anything in between.
As you'll hear in this conversation, there is so much that we can learn from each other when we engage in respectful, kind, and nuanced dialogue.
In today's conversation, we cover the role of independence in romantic relationships, exploring compersion in a monogamous context, maintaining the erotic connection over time, what constitutes an infidelity in their relationship, flirting, honesty and trust, what monogamous couples and non-monogamous couples can teach each other, and so much more. And with that, we bring you Andrew and Christina.
Welcome, Christina and Andrew, to the Evolving Love podcast. We have been looking forward to this conversation, especially because you are dear friends of ours. So it's a wonderful excuse to have a catch up with you both and also deep dive into these fantastic topics with you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hi.
So I thought what would be a great place to start is actually to give us a little background about your relationship, just how you met, how long you've been together, where you find yourself now.
We have been together for about 15 years. We met in Boston. We were both going to school there. Andrew was going for music. I was going for art. And I wanted to sing jazz too, so I found myself at the music school a lot, and we just met through a mutual friend. Sparks flew. We were in relationships at the time, so we just sort of like would catch up every week in rehearsals and stuff. And I think each of us, we both felt drawn to the other person. And there was one night when our relationships were both sort of finishing. And I was reminded of myself in a very deep way when I was around him. And so we started dating after that quicker than we thought, because I don't think we're relationship jumpers necessarily, but it just sort of like we landed in each other's laps a little bit. And then, yeah, we moved to New York City after a few years, and now we live in Maine, and we have 3 kids. We have a 7-year-old and twins who are 4.
In terms of the flow of what we were thinking about talking with you today in the conversation is you are a consciously monogamous couple. And it's something often that we get asked. Obviously, we have a podcast about non-monogamy and polyamory and deep diving into these different things. But often people can think that we are making kind of this blanket statement of everyone should be non-monogamous, everyone should be polyamorous to be in these beautiful relationships. But something that we really admire about your relationship is that you are very consciously monogamous and that you do have this incredible connection to each other. And I do wonder, when you first started dating, what did those discussions, did you just automatically fall into this monogamous setup? Were there conversations about what a potential relationship could look like in terms of your approach to monogamy or all these different types of things?
I don't think we ever talked about it.
No, I just remember like such a magnetism that there was just like no possible way that any other human being would enter my consciousness, to be honest.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I was just trying to woo her, really.
I mean, he was like singing songs outside of my bedroom in the alley on like in Boston where I lived. And it was so electric. It was so energized that I think maybe like quickly falling out of other relationships that were both like pretty long term for us, and then finding this thing that just felt so vibrant and true. I don't know if it felt like the right time to be like, hey, so do you want to just like do this consciously and just be monogamous? Because it was
Well, I wouldn't have known the words to use anyway. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to.
yeah, it's probably true.
You two could have been there in a time machine and then educated us on it. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think like, through meeting you and then finding this podcast and having you open up more about how you both experience love and non-monogamy has brought in conversations, I don't know, over the last few years where we have spent time realizing how consciously monogamous we are, because some of the stories that you tell are like really hot. And it's like, what would it be like if we went to a sex party in New York City? Because we were there. They were going to sex parties in New York City when we were there. Like that happened. Do people do that? That sounds kind of great. And then we would like talk about it and be like, I don't know. Does that sound kind of great to you? What do you think about that? Right?
yeah, I mean, it's always been better in the end when we talk through those things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of monogamous couples, they don't know that they can talk about them, and if they do, they don't, because they're so uncomfortable
Yes.
with that idea of talking about it.
I think sometimes just, even bringing up that conversation can spark a bit of fear or worry. It's like, well, why is this on your mind? This shouldn't be on your mind. Let's not sort of go there. So I think it's really amazing that this new information can come in for you guys and you can meet it with this place of curiosity and openness and self-reflection. I'm interested to know when we were in New York City and we were all, friends and hanging out and getting together and, with the babies and things, you sort of knew us in that context and you knew us sort of, I think then as a monogamous couple, I don't think we had shared much about our non-monogamy with you.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think at all. I think it was when we moved back and sort of through the writing and everything. Were you two surprised when you found out about our non-monogamous relationship? Like, did you have moments where you thought back and were like, actually?
No, I think I remember being, because our son is a little older than yours. And so we had a baby before you did. And I remember like connecting on that experience. And you guys used to come and be like, oh, like family goals. And like, you guys are like legends. And we were like, oh, thanks. That's really nice. And we would spend time together and stuff. And I remember one time being at like a lake house with friends because, these two, like Liam and Andrew, played music together. And I remember somebody referring to you guys doing like pretty like freaky stuff. And I don't know if like freaky stuff was the way that it was expressed, but it was just sort of like, oh yeah, like they're into like stuff that most people aren't into. And we were like, cool. We're pretty open people. There wasn't any judgment. But I remember once I found out that you guys were polyamorous, I was like, oh yeah, so they're into freaky stuff. Maybe that's how like polyamory starts. I don't know. But no, it wasn't like a
No, although I did remember, I mean, Liam and I worked together. I think it's more than dozens. It may be hundreds of times that we worked together. And there were times when, I mean, every girl at all those events just wanted to fling themselves at Liam because he had the hair and the accent and he played guitar and he sang. And I remember thinking, I thought it was a little fun thing I did to be like, no, Liam and I are a couple. He's not available.
Oh, yeah.
But then looking back on it, I was like, oh, well, maybe I ruined a lot of things for them.
Maybe you had a sense too. Maybe you were just like, you had like a strange intuition about.
It's really funny because at that time, I'm sure at the start of kind of our non-monogamous kind of journey, Abby and I in New York, a lot of it was kind of going to parties and going to different things. Like it wasn't necessarily separate dating. So even on those gigs that we're on together, I don't think you were cutting my grass by doing that because I don't think I was actually separately dating. But
no, you're right.
But the freaky stuff you mentioned was probably in reference to like some fun parties that we were going to and
sure.
and all of the like. But I do want to loop it back to you guys because I love this idea of you having these wonderful conversations about our podcast and then bringing that into your own relationship. And so when you do bring it up with each other, obviously you've already set the ground with like really strong communication over the 15 years of your relationship. It feels like you feel really comfortable to share anything with each other. So when you did bring up those conversations, what did those conversations look like?
Well, a lot of the times it started in the context of just an idea that we both kind of agreed on as, oh, that could be good. You know, but not thinking through it, all the logistics having to do with it, just being like, as an idea in itself, do we both like that? Oh,
like as a
we
fantasy.
do both like that. Yeah. And then being comfortable enough to actually talk through it and say, well, what if that was real? Would we want that? And then a lot of the times we realize, oh, there's too many things that we don't want compared to what we do want. So.
Well, it was cool. I think I was so interested in like being educated by you two. I'm not trying to spin it back to you, but like really, it was like really, I was just so intrigued and interested. And so I would be like, oh, Andrew, I was like in the studio the other day and I was listening to the podcast. And I think I'd probably said that a handful of times. And then he sort of stopped me one day and was like, is there something that you want to talk to me about? Like, is it something you're actually just interested in? Or is it something that you're like interested in? And I think it like it was cool. Andrew's really good at doing that, of just being like, I noticed this is happening. Do you need to talk about this more? Because, our life gets busy, right? And it was cool to stop and reflect on it and then just like talk about real life situations that we could find ourselves in that might be appealing. Because I was like, no, actually, I think I'm just really intrigued and interested in learning about different ways of being in relationships. I don't think that I've ever thought that I would like to be in that type of thing, but I don't know. Now it's on the table. Let's talk about it.
Right.
And and
you've done that to me too.
Yeah.
Where I've mentioned something and then Christina will say, well, is that something that you want?
That's right. We do
and
that
probably
to each other.
We do that to each other. And it's kind of nice because you might not be thinking about that as a real possibility ever, but it's nice to be reminded, oh, maybe we should think this through just so I can make you feel more at ease and make me feel more at ease with the idea of doing it or not doing it. And
yeah, I mean, you made a career change because I stopped you one day and was like, you've been talking a lot about how this isn't working for you. Do you actually want to make a shift? Because
Right.
that's okay with me. And
yeah, exactly.
I think that is, that's just something that for us, like we've done 15 years easily and changed who we are through that time because there's such an openness and acceptance of whatever it is that's flowing through us at the time. And like, it makes the relationship so vibrant because the person that I'm sitting next to is still the person that I started with, but we are more faceted and deeper and accepting of the depths that we can go to individually and together,
Your relationship is filled with growth and change and openness, and which can often, those words can be really sort of tied or connected to the non-monogamous space. But it's like, it's so clear that it's, you can absolutely have those experiences while being in this monogamous relationship as well. And I think there's something really awesome about being able to hear these stories and it almost takes the sort of the pressure or the sort of heat off you initially to be like going and, looking into this yourself. But it's like to be hearing it in a podcast and then having, these, it like takes the focus off you guys, but saying, look at how these other people are doing it. What is this bringing up? Is this bringing up anything at all? Or is this actually just really validating the choices that we've made? Because when I hear this, it also doesn't feel, right. And I'm sure that there have been, many times when you listen to our podcast, where as much as you're like, oh, that's actually really interesting or cool, there would be those times, I'm sure, where you're like, actually just absolutely not. But I've never had to even sit with why absolutely not. And now I can look into that and connect in with that and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Being more conscious of, I think a lot of people would see your podcast and think, no way, never. But then they don't really ever think about why it's no way or never.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a million reasons why I would encourage monogamous people to listen to you guys And I do. But one of them is to say, that's fine. You don't have to want to do any of this. But do you know why you don't want to do any of this?
Mm.
And so we've been able to have a few of those conversations. Like, yeah, it makes us not feel good for a certain reason, but why? Why don't we feel good about it? And you can talk through it a little bit more.
Right.
Rather than shutting it down completely and then never talking about it because it's so you don't want to.
Right. And then it's great because if one day either one of us has some sort of like compelling feeling that pulls us in a different direction, there is such an open space to discuss that in a safe way. And that's across the board. Like, I want to change careers. I want to move from here to there. I actually don't want to live in the house that we planned and talked about and like joke about living in until we die. Maybe, like all of these different things that are just all about an evolving life, like together. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to share so openly with someone. And that's something that I think, like, oftentimes we'll both be doing our own thing, and then I'll come in and be like loading the dishwasher and be like, did you hear? I was listening to Abby and Liam today and they were talking about blah, blah, blah. And he's like,
we
yeah, I
listen
actually
to
listened
other
to it.
Stuff too.
Yeah, I know, we do. But like we're separately listening to you.
Yeah. Well,
like,
I just miss you both so much.
Yeah, that's true.
I just like hearing your voices a lot of the time. Sometimes I'm not even really paying attention to what you're talking to or who you're talking to. I just like hearing
that's why
your
you guys need
interjections.
to start a podcast as well, so we can do the same. We can
that'd
trade.
be great.
We can trade. Well, you talked about those reasons for not being interested in pursuing anything. So you're having these conversations, and then there is a gravitation towards monogamy again. Even with these delicate conversations, what do you think is the main reason for those gravitational pulls back to monogamy?
Yeah, I think it ends up being like a bodily feeling. Like as we discuss it, there's like a bodily, like eventually both of us, like we'll get through some scenarios where we're like, oh, actually, yeah, that could actually be kind of cool. And then suddenly there's like this real, at least for me, I get this somatic experience where I'm full of like unease that doesn't sound like the fun jittery that you discuss, but just like something that's actually like, I'm not sure if I'm meant to do that. And also I think like both of us are similar in that, if we were at like a party in college or something, we're the people who are like having one-on-one conversations with the same person the whole time. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's true for me. I don't know. Like I would so much rather dive in the depths of one human while I'm also diving into the depths of myself and find all of the facets of that person to love and share my facets with.
Yeah. No,
and yeah, like it's not like a jealousy thing. I don't think it's that. It's certainly not like an ownership thing. I don't feel like Andrew owns me and I own him or.
I mean, and sometimes it's a logistical negative that we feel where we're, I mean, I don't have 5 free minutes.
It's true.
For myself. And so we think to ourselves like, oh my God, like, how do I even find someone to date? And then I have to, because we want to give somebody, here's the real issue. We would want to give the people that we're dating the time that we think they deserve. And we don't have any time hardly at all. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it's a really good point actually, because when we do actually flesh out these scenarios where there's like another person, typically it's been like someone who would be like a third party involved. I don't know what the lingo is, but somebody who would join us and we are both.
Oh, unicorn. They did a whole thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
you missed that one.
Oh shit. Yeah. So somebody a unicorn, who would magically appear in our life and we would feel like we've always discussed, like, if this ever happens for us, I think we would just know this is kind of how things work for us. Like we would just both have the same feeling and be like, yeah, okay. So now's the time where maybe we play with this possibility. But we are both such deep lovers. Like we are we are like all in people. And so maybe that's why it feels so strange to think about having other people and playing around with like the polyamory, because playing around polyamory, because it just
cut it out if we don't seem cool.
it just feels, I don't know any other way to love than to like be so deeply grounded and wholly there, while also having like my fierce independence too.
Well, we devote a lot of time to ourselves.
Yes.
And so that's a big thing too.
Individually. Yes.
Yeah. Just being by ourselves.
Yes. Like that is a huge priority. Our house is cacophonous in a beautiful way, but like one of my main focuses in my life is to have my own independence outside of our family unit and outside of our marriage. And that brings me to like such a grounded place inside of the marriage and inside of the family unit too. And Andrew's now started taking a lot more time too.
I should say we want to devote more time to ourselves, and usually we're not able to, but it's something that it reaches a breaking point at a certain time every few months, and we realize each of us needs our own. It's just part of a daily ritual for us is we each have to be by ourselves.
Yeah.
So many valid points here, time, logistics, your own practice to your own work and creativity and the life that you're building together. And I think it's really kind and so open-hearted of you guys that even though you're sort of, you're exploring the fantasy and the idea at different points, when you hear about it, what would this look like? I guess that could be really exciting and fun, but also then saying, well, actually, we wouldn't really be able to give another partner in the, connection in the way that they might want to have. But also, looping back to Christina, what you said about, really feeling that in your body as well. So it's like, even though feeling so sort of excited and curious, but then coming back to your body is so important, because of course things can come up when you're exploring non-monogamy as well. And of course they come up for Liam and I, where there can be a little bit of resistance to things. But I think the difference here, between us and you guys in this space is that we have more of that sort of desire to pursue that and for each other as well. And I think that, even when you understand something on a philosophical level or an intellectual level, which, you guys do, you understand, you're not judgmental of open relationships, you're open to the curiosity of it and learning about it. But then coming back to like, well, how much work would I want to put in this? Because you wouldn't want to be in a relationship, you're already in a really fantastic space within your relationship, and to sort of bring in too much, unnecessary work that you'd have to navigate or go through or put yourself in situations of dis-ease, to explore, you sort of like weighing it all up. And I think that's really like, it's so fantastic that you guys are even able to have this conversation where you can explore the thought, but then listen to your body, because you want to be happy in a relationship, and you don't want to be spending all of this time doing all of this work and navigating all of this difficulty if it's not going to be sort of bringing things up and connecting you both together, even more, I feel like, because we've talked through all the possibilities of what happens if any of those things are real.
Yeah.
That once you get through all that and you realize, oh no, it's not for me, or you talk about why maybe you wouldn't like it, then actually you can enjoy the fantasy more because there's no lingering questions. You can kind of like, you can continue to talk about the nice parts of that idea without being worried about these things that you haven't talked about.
Yeah, leaning into the fantasy of it, not necessarily needing to make that fantasy a reality. And this is something that I just love, because it's like being able to, connect in with it as an idea. And this is something that I actually would love for, when I share with monogamous people, about being open, it's like, how cool to be able to play around with these ideas, because you can get that energy. So I love that, because there's wouldn't have to worry about, it becoming, you don't have to actually deal with the, if it actually happens.
Right.
It's like without that sort of real fear.
Sure.
I think a lot of monogamous couples are afraid to even talk about them because they haven't had the conversations about, what's negative and why is it negative for us?
That's a really good point. Yeah. So then like that brings it back to the whole consciously monogamous thing. I think we're more consciously monogamous than we realize we are, because we really are like going through these things and consciously not choosing them and consciously choosing other things, which, I mean, honestly, like the hottest thing ever could be for me to take a day or 5 alone and Andrew to do the same, and then to come back as like fuller versions of who we are, and then meeting each other there.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, Christina, before about kind of just falling really deeply in love and kind of just needing to kind of really explore all the facets of the person. Do you think in some ways some of the reasons why non-monogamy doesn't seem like an option is because there's this sort of kind of protectionism that might come with your relationship? It's like we are the foundational relationship, and we feel that because we are the types of people to fall really deeply, we almost don't want to explore out of fear of that potentially happening with another person.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess so. I mean, like we break the status quo on a lot of typical things. Like our life is not typical. Our jobs are not typical. Our schedule is not typical. The way that we prioritize things is not typical. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't really answer your question with that, but like,
well, we'll have to get back to you.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's ask it again.
Because you are such loving people, and because you do have such an incredible connection with each other, there obviously comes a point where you feel so protective, and Abby and I feel this as well. There's a lot of discourse in non-monogamy about hierarchies and all that kind of stuff, and we really view our relationship as a primary relationship, and when we are dating other people, we make sure to let them know that we do see Abby and myself as a kind of primary relationship. But we feel really strong within that commitment to each other, and strong knowing that if we do explore with other people, it's not going to challenge our sense of security. But for a monogamous couple, you have each other, and that is, really seriously the most primary relationship, of course, in terms of love and eroticism and all that type of thing. So the thought of exploring with someone else, it does come as some sort of, possible threat, even just hypothetically. Yeah. So my question, I guess, was really trying to bear down on is there a sense of like protectiveness and not wanting to risk anything by involving another party?
I see what you're saying. Yes.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a risk.
Yeah, I don't
think of it that way.
Yeah, like it doesn't. It is so deep, and when I talk about us being deeply loving people, I guess like it just never, when we like go through the thought of experiencing other people in like a deeply loving way, it never feels, it's not, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's not necessarily out of like a protective mentality, although I think like this is so beautiful to me that I do want to keep it.
Of course.
And like have it and continue to evolve it. But yeah, I don't know if it's like a protective feeling.
Yeah,
I guess maybe
some
it
of
is.
them. There are some things where we may not know until should it ever happen.
Right.
So
until like a line gets crossed and we're like, well, there's that line. Let's talk about that line.
Well, because there's also the binary thinking as well. But obviously, you guys have listened to the podcast and you know us, and you know about non-monogamy. Even in the abstract terms of just knowing about it. But a lot of people who don't know about non-monogamy think there's either like two settings. You're either monogamous or you're just like free for all, running through the streets trying to pick up people. And it's like, have you ever thought about the eroticism of, you mentioned parties before and all the freaky parties we used to go to, but is it something like even the thought of like displaying your erotic connection?
Yes,
around
that's where it goes.
around other people, you know,
Yes.
that's actually a really safe way. Like we
completely.
know monogamous people who go to sex parties,
Mm-hmm.
and then some people who are monogamous would say, well, that means you're not non-monogamous, that you are non-monogamous. And I would say, actually, you can totally be monogamous and really feed off like the exhibitionism, the voyeurism, like all of that kind of erotic input.
And just to break it down as well, like when we say monogamous people going to sex parties and only choosing to be with each other. Just want to sort of clarify that, because I think sometimes people can think sex parties, like that means sort of anything goes, all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, your description of sex parties has been just like, wow, this is so safe and actually like an incredibly safe and beautiful experience, which illuminated it for me for sure. But yeah, that's totally how we would start. Like, I don't know.
Right.
That's like what you just said sounds great. You know?
I mean, I suppose going back to your protectionism, I guess I would be protective, but I don't associate any worry with that word.
Yeah, I think we're just so like all things can be on the table safely between us. So I think that there would be that I think that is such a huge part of why I think maybe the protectionism part of your question feels like, I don't know if it's protectionism. Like
I think it could be. I think it is, but we don't really associate any worry with that.
I agree.
Well, I think, you know, when we hear protection, sometimes it can almost get confused with possession.
Yes.
Like I consider myself a very protective person, and I feel very protective of our relationship. I feel very protective of our family home life. I feel very protective of, you know, the dreams and the future that we're sort of building and creating together. And I have no worry about saying that. You know, it's just, it's a normal feeling to have when you are in such a connective relationship. And I think it is different to possession.
Well, now that you phrase it like that, then yes, it is protection is a huge part of it. But yes, removing possession from it is what's key for us.
Like this is a treasured thing.
You
know? So yeah, maybe I was also misunderstanding the question, but yes, this is something that I would like I would not want to disrupt, or I just wouldn't. Yeah, maybe that's part of like the draw of not wanting to actually pursue like a polyamorous, you know, anytime we discuss it, because this is just like, I don't feel like I need to go looking for anything else. Like I'm very fulfilled by what we have together. So there's no, it sort of ends with that. Like, that sounds nice. And yeah, like a monogamous situation in a sex party sounds fun. But yeah, like this is so, I don't feel like I want anything. All I really want is time alone. That's where I am in life right now, is like time alone is the real treasure.
And it sounds like you two really, you give that to each other and you really value that. And that is so beautiful. I mean, you just said before, you know, a wonderful thing would be to go away for 5 days and to just go and be your own people in the world and have that independence. And, you know, people can go and do that. And it's not about connecting with other people or looking elsewhere or anything like that, but it's like honoring each other as individuals and really valuing that. And I mean, I think that it is true that there are so many monogamous relationships where that isn't valued. It's not seen as important. And, you know, the roles that we play in family life, or, you know, the role as mother, like it would be so selfish. You know, some people would think, oh, it would be so selfish if you went and had 5 days to pursue your own creativity or your own thing. You should be, you know, at home. And I think that the fact that you guys can see through that, like, even though, you know, you are monogamous, but you've done a lot of unpacking in that way as well. Like you're not ashamed to be who you are in the world and to honor that and to let go of any of those sorts of expectations, to honor yourselves and each other as individuals and creativity. And that actually, it's so true. I mean, it just makes me think of Esther Perel with Mating in Captivity. I don't know if you've read that book, but, you know, that book really, you know, hones down on the importance of like having a bit of distance from each other, seeing each other sort of as separate individuals, and then the hotness that then comes from that.
Seriously. It's so attractive to know that somebody is an individual that, like, at least for me anyway, I love knowing that Andrew could disappear and like we could even not talk for 5 days. It's not like a call me and like check in and let's FaceTime with the kids before bed. It's just like you go, you're gone. Have that time, please. And like sometimes we're connecting and sometimes we're not. And there's no expectation there, which is just so freeing. And that is something that like I talk openly about with like a lot of my monogamous friends because it's not common.
Well, and we had to get there because each of us felt a certain amount of guilt, especially with the kids.
Yeah.
Because when you leave, you know what it's like to be alone with the
Yes.
And so we each had to, because then you can't fully enjoy yourself if you're by yourself. So
it's a really good point.
But I think we've pretty much moved past that. We're able to be alone and not really have that be a concern. But the one thing, and goes back to why I think it's worth people at least learning the vocabulary of non-monogamy, is this idea of compersion. You know, when you've been away for, you know, maybe it was 4 days, 4 nights, and I genuinely felt compersion for
he
her.
texted it to me actually. I went away and like had this amazing time in like kind of fancy treehouse in the woods, and I was just like, I am going to be gone. I will not be in touch. I need to like go and just have time alone. And it was that, maybe that was like the first real time, maybe the second, where I felt like I have zero guilt about this. I am living with such ease by myself. And I know that means that you are home suffering maybe sometimes because you have to like handle all of our life alone. And I do that plenty too. So let's like tag in and tag out. It's so it's so essential. Yeah.
When I feel like when you're able to experience that compersion, it's less of a barter system where okay, now you owe me.
Right.
Okay, now I owe you.
Right.
It's less about that. And yes, it's more difficult being a parent alone than with two parents, but it's just more enjoyable if you're able to get there.
Well, you're in a give and take with it as well. It's a beautiful gift that you're giving to each other to be able to go and take that time. And that then feeds into your sense of happiness, knowing that, you know, the other one of you is like in this tree house having this beautiful time and having that rest to be invigorated, to then come back a more rested, whole, fulfilled person is like so just absolutely beautiful. And I think that there can be, it's beautiful that it's a two-way street with this. And I think, you know, when we think about sort of traditionally, there would be so many more situations, especially in heterosexual relationships as well, where, you know, the man is going off away for work for long periods of time and the mother's at home and never gets a break. And, you know, you two are just, it's a beautiful give and take.
It's really important. I think it started when I went out and had an artist residency in California for like a whole week. And it was, for me, I could be like, well, I was given this artist residency, so I got to go. And I went out there and I was like, this is the most incredible. Like, I don't think I have felt so grounded in the last 7 years. And this feels so essential now. Now that I know this feeling, I have to build it in to the year. And it wasn't work pulling me out there. It was just like a gift. And then when I came back, he was kind of like, that sounds incredible. I'm so excited for you. And I think maybe I want to try to find a way to do that too. And so then it's just been like throughout the year, we remind each other like, hey, you haven't taken that week for yourself yet. You should probably go do that. I'm not going to plan it for you, but just a reminder, like the year's going to book up. So do it now or it won't happen, you know?
It's actually the epitome of secure attachment within a relationship to do this.
Yeah.
And in terms of that idea of secure attachment, it's like, how have you fostered that sense of security? Because obviously now you're saying, you know, you feel comfortable with each other doing that types of things. Has it always been the case? Like in the early stages of your relationship, a lot of times monogamous people can be very threatened by the idea of their partner going away. What does this mean? Does this mean that there might be an infidelity? Like, are they going to go to a bar and meet someone and then they're away for 5 days in California on an artist residency, having the time of their life? You know, it's like, what has been the kind of movement to that really sense of secure attachment?
Well, one thing is it's fun. It's always been fun for us to observe each other in public interacting with other people.
That's very true.
So meaning when she says, I met somebody at the bar and I talked to so-and-so for so long and it was just great. I can actually picture that happening and it's not a threatening thing to me. And then when I went away recently, she said, yeah, what if you meet someone at that stadium that you're going to see the rugby and you start talking to them. And I guess there's a certain sense of security in knowing how the person acts in public. And maybe people don't see that enough and that would make them feel a little more confident.
Yeah. Plus I think we're just the lines of communication are so open that if there was a situation that would make either one of us uncomfortable, I think it would be addressed. Like there's just such a trust that would be true.
Well, that's true. Because it's not as if there aren't things that we feel negatively about it, but we are able to bring them up. And
I think I think it has evolved over time. Like
it has. I mean, I was very different when I first met you. I probably would be uncomfortable with certain things.
Yeah. Like I remember certain conversations that were like, there was a tinge of like, oh, you would do that? Or like, you know what? Recently I even found like a love letter because we used to write each other love letters because we still, thank God, we still like had that experience. We're not very old, but like old enough where you could send love letters. And so I was looking at one and one of the ones you had said, I'm getting used to the fact that your job takes you places without me. And that was something that like you were getting used to. Like you go and you're your own person. And I think maybe I never apologized for that. So I think it was sort of like, yeah, I am going. I love that I get to go and do this and travel. And then you as like a loving, compersive partner to me would be like, that fills you up. I will get used to that. And then it's like, now you're like, I'm going to go do that. And I don't even think twice about things that might be happening. Also, I don't think we're naturally anxious people either, but
no. Well, in my job now, I'm gone 24 hours at a time, every time. So.
Yeah, right. So like Andrew's a firefighter now. That's why we moved up here for this job, which was a big pivot. And it happened. He started getting interested in it when I was pregnant with our first kid and like about to give birth. And he was like, you know what? I think maybe I want to become a firefighter. I was like, okay, cool. Let's do that. Weird timing, but if that is like calling to you, you should do it. Right. And we're both like creative people too, because he's a musician too. So I think there's like a deep reverence for doing what you feel you need to do. And so I think if either of us went up to the other person and said, I feel so deeply that this is something I need to do, that would be an automatic, yes, let's figure out how to get there. Yeah, maybe that's just who we are, I guess. And that's maybe gotten us through a lot of open conversations because there's a safety in knowing that. But yeah, like he goes to work and I literally can't even reach him because he could be going into a burning building or helping like so many different iterations of problems that would be going on in 24 hours. And I'm like on my own. I could be doing crazy stuff. I don't know.
Such a hero, Andrew.
Such a hero.
I know, he's a hero. It's just like the hot scale, just like gone. Yeah.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Evolving Love podcast, we invite you to follow, comment, and subscribe. Sharing the podcast with friends, family, or lovers is the best way to support the Evolving Love podcast.
If you are interested in diving deeper and accessing my premium writing archive and other exclusive content, you can sign up at evolvingloveproject.substack.com.
Something that you are both seem incredibly adept at is acknowledging that you can't be the only source of each other's happiness. You know, it's like that sense of self, that sense of, just nurturing your own individual relationships to yourself. And like you find yourself now where you feel comfortable kind of going away on these trips and really kind of honing in on that feeling. But looking into the future, what do you think that relationship is going to look like in terms of relationship to yourself? Because you do have this wonderful family, and eventually you will have kind of more time to play with that. But have you had discussions about what that's going to, the trajectory of what that could possibly look like?
I mean, we just built a studio at our house, and Andrew has a music space and I have a studio there. And we talk about just like one day. I mean, I don't want to like wish time away because it goes so fast, but like one day he'll be out playing music and I'll be upstairs making art, and maybe we'll take a nap together, and we'll probably have a sauna that we'll have just gotten out of the ocean in the winter because we swim in the winter here, and like we'll go and take a sauna together and like take a nap and have some tea and like maybe have some sex if we're not really old.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of nudity involved in every
I
one
think
of
there
those,
will
pretty
be.
much,
yeah, so we'll just be naked all the time in our own
A
house.
lot more nudity.
I think it's beautiful. We have talked about it in like abstract terms, but I think like I can speak for myself certainly, but like this summer in particular has been such an awakening of self in a way that like I don't feel like I have ever been more aligned with who I am and how I am in the world. And I sense the same thing with Andrew, because when we talk about these things, like when we get time to go and have a meal, I think we always somehow meet each other in the same sort of evolution of self. And it's just so nice. And like, I just feel like we're going to be ripe together, you know? Like I look forward to that time because there's been plenty of evolving already.
Yeah.
I mean, 15 years when we were in our early 20s, now we're in our mid to late 30s. It's different.
One thing I was wondering that I wanted to ask you two, is speaking of that time that we crave for ourselves, is whether or not you two crave time to be on your own. And if you do, does that cut into time that you are dating others, or are you even dating others now? And does that, if you're dating others, does that cut into the time that you have alone?
That is definitely something that we talk a lot about. And I think a misconception of us and our relationship can be that we're much busier in terms of our dating lives than we actually are. But I think it comes back to being conscious about our non-monogamous experiences as well. I think something that Abby and I talk a lot about is, if we do have these times that we've carved out, maybe it's potentially a time that we could see another partner, for instance. It's like, is the best use of that time seeing the partner, or is it spending time with yourself? Is it fulfilling, different needs that don't necessarily have to be a need of non-monogamous experience? And it is a balance, and it's something that you're constantly calibrating and learning.
But it is something that we do. We do the same thing, and especially as creatives as well. Like, I know that there are times where I can see with Liam that he really does need time out. And, we are in a fortunate spot where, my parents have a little place, they've got a spot up in the mountains, and there have been times where I'm like, Liam, just go for 3 days, just go and have that time, to just like sleep, rest, recalibrate, have that creative, have his creative experience, do all of that. And we really value that. And, there was last year, Liam went to New York for nearly 3 weeks, I think it was, or 2.5 weeks or something.
I was heartbroken that I couldn't see him.
Yeah, you just missed each other, I think. Yeah.
And I was like, go, please do that. For me, I have times where, I go out of town for a couple of nights, go to Sydney, have a bit of time away. But even just like giving each other smaller breaks too, like for example, like yesterday, I finished work early in the afternoon, and, I could have picked our son up from school, but Liam was like, no, I'm going to go get him, and then I'm going to stay out for a while so that you can just go home and have a rest. I just hadn't had much sleep the night before. So I was like, okay, great. I came home, I had something to eat, and I actually just went to bed and I had that nap. And Liam wanted me to have that nap. I'm like, I have to have this, and I think you guys came home around 5:30 or something. So I had like a whole chunk, I had from like 2:30 to 5:30.
And yesterday is a great case study.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I share about some of the because yesterday I went for a rock climb with a friend, which was really fun. And this was just a climbing friend, and so I've been getting into bouldering.
How big was the rock, Liam?
It wasn't. It was indoors, and it was bouldering. So, but he's really good at bouldering. So I'm kind of like a newbie. So he was kind of kind of teaching me the how to climb basically. But then in the morning I'd had this fun little non-monogamous experience, and that was
date. You had to catch up.
Yeah, I had a date.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. And then the day kind of went on, and I had some work stuff to do, of course. And after that, I picked up our son from school, and then Abby needed some space, so she had some space. And then we came home, and then we all connected as a family, and we played all these games, and we did all this fun stuff. And
We had pizza night.
We had pizza night. I made the mistake of like playing this like robber game with our son, which involved like waiting for the sun to go down, and then I'd bought all these lasers from Bunnings, like the hardware store, and then I think maybe he's like a little scared of robbers now. So I don't know if it was a necessarily successful game, but in terms of the kind of holistic nature of just that day, it's like I felt that I nurtured myself through going rock climbing with a friend. I also had this really fun connection, and then we had really beautiful family time, and then last night we had really hot sex as well. So it was kind of like
it's amazing. It's like an ideal day.
It's kind of like a pretty wild day.
And like you were feeling so good with your day and everything that you were doing, and had this date and had this rock climbing and all of that. It's like when I was like, oh, can you pick up our son from school? Like I just need it. Liam's like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
You know,
he's
Del,
like,
you
I am
do
sure.
you.
Have a week. I'm good.
Liam's like, yes, you do you. It's like, what's he going to say? No.
Yeah.
Like after.
No, it's cyclical.
Yes, it is cyclical. So then you're not like glorifying the suffering. You're glorifying like the full cup all day, every day.
Exactly.
Like if my cup is full and your cup is full, whatever that means to both of us, no judgment on what fills yours, no judgment on what fills mine. Like that's when everything is whole and we both show up in our lives as better people.
Exactly. You know, with the sort of separateness of it, because Liam was on that separate date, you know, earlier in the morning, it's like that actually does, because there is that compersive element that actually did come back around for us. You know what I mean? Because we are in that sort of compersive place with each other to then sort of connect over that and bring that into our own connection. Sexually.
And that really is a common denominator between any type of relationship is the appreciation for everyone having a full cup. It's like you're saying, if the cup overfloweth, you know, it's great for any sort of relationship. And it's great for family life as well. It's like, I'm sure, like Christina, when you went away for a week on this artist residency, by the time you got back, you were probably so ready just to kind of go fully into family life and date night with Andrew and reconnecting sexually, as well as all of the types of things.
It's the way it should be everywhere. And like, I don't see monogamous couples doing that as often. Like, I think everybody could learn from you all and your podcast just in that little tidbit, because I don't think it's as common in monogamous relationships.
No, I guess not. It is interesting when I tell people about you guys and that I listen to you guys, and a lot of the times it's like, wow, really? You know people like that? Yeah, they're my friends. And at first I was kind of like, well, yeah, I knew them here, and then I have to kind of like, I give this little explanation. And now I'm kind of to the point where I'm just like, yeah, I like it too. I like listening to them. I like what they have. And then they say, well, and then they try and dissect it a little bit more. You like it because of this, right? And I was like, yeah. And then they say, well, but the sexual stuff too. I was like, yeah, that too.
Sure.
And that is to say that I think people are nervous, like, well, I'm interested in the sexual aspects of it, so I kind of want to know about that. But there's so much more. There's so much more to be learned, or just learn about the sexual aspect. I mean, I think people could really learn more about their own sexuality by being open to this.
Yes, yes. Just like talking about it. It doesn't have to be this hush hush thing. It's so beautiful that it can just be like, this is what they do. This is what we do. It's all awesome.
Well, in terms of kind of maintaining like 15 years and maintaining your erotic connection, like even just watching you on the screen, like there is such a palpable desire for each other and this kind of flirtiness that I've just always witnessed in your relationship. Like the whole time we've known you, we've always been like, man, Andrew and Christina have such a vibe. And it's funny because often when I kind of pride myself on being pretty good at spotting non-monogamous people.
Did you think we were non-monogamous?
No, I don't necessarily think that, but I think that maybe
it'd be cooler
in a lot
if
of
you did.
ways,
Yeah.
maybe in a lot of ways, it might be an exception that proves the rule. But often the couples who have such intense, especially in long relationships like yours, is that and the playfulness, it really often does come down to kind of what I would call like a non-monogamous spirit.
Yeah.
So saying all that, I'm interested to know how you've maintained that erotic connection over the years.
Well, I think because we're so open and creative, that transfers over, and we seem to just try things without even.
Yeah.
I think some things we discuss beforehand where we go, oh, that could be good. Let's try that. But a lot of the times it just sort of like these things just happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can be very vulnerable with each other in all ways, which can be very hot to like feel like you can just be so safe and open with a person. Like that opens up all possibilities, right? And like sometimes one of us will like bring a fun gift home and be like, I got this fun gift. Let's see what it is. And then, it's always like, great. It's not like, oh, what would you bring me?
Right.
I don't want anything. Like, that's weird. And there's just like, I feel like both of us also have a pretty childlike like spirit about ourselves. So there's like a playfulness that's just inherent in each of us that I think is something that we treasure. And, I don't know, like we can just be fun and open and.
Well, we also both really get off on the other person experiencing pleasure.
Yeah.
In
always
every aspect,
in the treehouse, in the house, in the bed, whatever.
So that, I mean, that I think that's probably the biggest thing is because then if you notice, like, oh, you like that? Okay, well then let's. Because then I want to go further into that if you're into it.
Yeah. And it's just, there's no formula.
No, that's what's fun.
There's no formula. Like I hear so many people that are in monogamous relationships where they're just tired of the same thing that they expect all the time. But, like I said before, we've changed as human beings in spirit and like career or whatever throughout the 15 years we've been together. So change is something that we get to expect of each other. So then to be able to change and know that we can change and evolve inside of our relationship is really freeing to then have like a deeply erotic connection, because that's cool that I'm not like having sex with the same person that I did 15 years ago. It is the same person and the same like grounded human being, but there's a lot of new. Yeah. Yes. We say that all the time. Like,
and we don't seem to really search for it either. It just sort of happens, and then we're open to the idea of a new something, a new
whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you love experiencing new iterations of each other, and you're not afraid for each other to shift into a new version of themselves and sort of feeding that back in. And I think that oftentimes in monogamy, there can be so much fear around change and hesitancy. And it's like, well, we have to be that exact couple who we were when we were 20 and 22.
Yes.
And it's got to, we've got to be into everything that we were into then. And if we're not into that now, it means something's wrong or it's lacking. And then, people can sort of cage up, but it feels like, you two are like just blooming, you're expecting the change, you're expecting the shifts, you know that you have like a broader sort of philosophical understanding of all of this, that you are just, on your own journeys and together. But also, when we're like, what would it, when I'm watching you guys and listening to you guys and it's like, what have you done to sort of maintain that erotic connection? It's like, I feel like sometimes there are people who just, and this is you guys, you just have that deep, deep connection and understanding to each other that it's just, it's hot, it's effortless, it's like, it's fun. And of course it's like there would be times where there's stress and there's disagreements and all of that comes up. But you've got a very strong bond. You're a very connected couple. And I think that's what, before we told, when we were pregnant and spending time with you guys and looking at you guys, like we really look to you guys as a couple to be inspired by. And it wasn't because of monogamy or this or that. It's actually to do with your connection, because you can feel it and it's energetic and there's an aliveness, and it's in the freedom that you both have when you're with each other, your freedom to speak, your freedom to have your thoughts, to bounce off each other. And that is something that we really connect with. And, even now we know so many non-monogamous people and polyamorous people. And, I would say as a couple, I actually feel like we would still actually have more in common with you two than we would with probably a fair few of the non-monogamous people who we know.
Yeah.
And it's to do with a lot of things. It's the broader picture of it, because even though our relationship does look different to yours in that, the openness sense with, being with other people, there are these sort of fundamental similarities that I think that we do share. Dedication to family life, growing, giving each other that space, being creatives as well. There is that, we do have that in common with you guys. So as much as, you guys have been saying you would love for monogamous people to listen to our podcast because it's really great and all of that, I actually feel like a lot of monogamous people I hope that a lot of monogamous people might listen to you guys. As fellow monogamous people, you guys are really, I think you guys just doing it so beautifully and so open-heartedly.
Obviously, with online discourse, there comes a time where people silo into their own kind of little echo chambers. And a lot of non-monogamous people do find themselves kind of in those echo chambers and not necessarily deliberately avoiding the beautiful stories that can be shared from monogamous couples or people in different experiences, but they just kind of unintentionally don't get exposed to those things because all they hear about is, the poly podcast they listen to or the, all the Instagram accounts that they follow.
Yeah.
One question that I'm really interested in asking you, and it's a bit of a meta question, is that when I think of monogamy, and maybe this is the way that I've been brought up to view monogamy, which is, the default setting, this is just how you do it. There is this beautiful poetry almost in the idea of having this kind of really long relationship, this monogamous relationship. I remember, Andrew, when we used to play these weddings, which we often did, that I don't know if you remember these games, but we would play the game where where the band keeps playing music, and then we go, who's been married one day, and then the bride and groom sit down, and then who's been married 5 years, and then ultimately it's these like 80-year-olds left on the dance floor who've been married 55 years, and then everyone goes, wow, this is incredible, like these guys are awesome. But then there's no real concept of like they could have had a shit marriage, like time, like the amount of time doesn't really mean anything. But do you think about the kind of almost poetic nature of, when you are in your 80s and, cuddling each other to sleep at night, do you find a sense of strength in the idea of being like, oh, I have been monogamous for this whole relationship?
Oh, I don't know if I think about it like that, like a monogamy track race or something like that. I don't know if you do.
No, I do. Like, it is, if I picture myself in my 80s, I'm like naked in this house with you, like after, hanging out and taking a nap. But it's more just like, who are we?
Yeah.
Then? Yeah. Do you know what I think? I think Andrew and I are very good at being in the present moment and like enjoying that for what it is. And that is like where that is like where I think our life has become so rich. And like we're meeting each other today and we're meeting each other tomorrow. And same with our kids and same with our friends and same with like the things that we're doing in our life.
Right.
And so, yeah, like when we get to be 80, we'll probably, if God willing, we get there and we're together and you've like conquered all these fires and you're retired and we can just have a relaxing, wonderful time. And then the moment would be like, wow, we are here now. We were there then.
Yeah.
But like we are here now.
Because I guess at the heart of the question as well, for me, is like this sense of like, what do we what do we put the aspirational part onto? Like, do we put the ultimate relationship, the aspirational relationship is like this monogamous relationship, and there is still this kind of pedestaling, even in my mind, I guess, of like, oh, like, isn't that amazing? Like 50 years, like, to resist the temptation. You listen to someone like Dan Savage, who says, if you are a monogamous couple and you have been married for 50 years and you've only cheated on each other twice, that's actually a successful monogamous relationship.
Man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was that I did love whenever we would do those things, and then I would lean over to one of the girls singing, and I would whisper like, and they've hated every year of it, and they would hate. I mean, they would be offended that I would make such a horrible joke about something like that. I like the idea of people being together that long. I think it's.
Do you know what I think I would revere?
But I don't. But I also like the idea of people being friends for that long.
Sure.
It has a little bit less than. It's less of the what and rather the who. And so I like if I knew more about the people, I think that's what I like more than the, what are you calling it? Oh, it's monogamous. And what is it? Oh, it's 60 years. That's more of the what. I would rather, who are they? And the monogamy part is secondary to that, I guess.
Yeah. Or like, have you been, the thing that I would like champion is, have you been true to yourselves that whole time, like with each other?
Yeah, Liam just mentioned this longevity of the monogamous relationship. And, as Dan Savage said, I think, if people have been monogamous for all of this time and there's only a couple of slip ups, or they only cheat on each other, a handful of times, that they've actually done pretty well, and that, I think what he's sort of meaning there is that, like, we can expect a lot, like 100% from a monogamy with no slip ups. And if there are slip ups, it means that there's sort of a failure. So this makes me think a little bit about, infidelity and cheating. And I'm just wondering, what would you consider to be an infidelity? Because it's not like a sort of black and white thing. I know when I was a teenager, we just think of cheating. It's like when you hook up with somebody else.
Yes.
Right.
Without thinking about what the intention is or why this might happen or how it unfolded. And, there's currently a lot of discussion around micro-infidelities in monogamous discourse at the moment, from what I see online, what the algorithm feeds me.
Well, that's what you'll have to educate me on, the definition of micro.
So micro-infidelity, not sleeping with somebody else or necessarily hooking up with them, but maybe sort of
like a flirty text.
Forming a connection with somebody that you might keep a bit of a secret, or like, having a work colleague that you have a vibe with, you text, there's a connection there, but you consciously don't tell your partner. And you wouldn't cross that line, but it's still something sort of secretive for oneself, just like little things like that, sort of, pushing it a bit, but not the whole way. And so I'm really interested to know, in your monogamous relationship, what would be an infidelity for you both?
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever defined it using all those.
No.
But it's a good question.
Do you have your answer?
No, do you?
I think, yeah. I mean, the thing that, like, I think it would just be something if you felt like you weren't allowed to say it to me. That would probably be.
That would be it, I think, for me. If I, no matter what it is, even if it's has nothing to do with eroticism or what people would consider infidelity when they talk about it, if it was something that she couldn't tell me, maybe that would be it.
Yeah, because I feel
although
like
there are plenty of things that we don't tell each other, but that has less to do with keeping secrets rather than.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't download my whole day to you.
Right.
Like, we have parts of our lives that are things that, like, I have things that I know that I don't share with you, not on purpose, but just like, we can't get there. But I think, I think if it was something where you felt like you couldn't bring it up, I would think that there was something that should be discussed then, maybe. Yeah.
I think we're lucky that we've been pretty open with each other about things that, like experiences we have with other people that are funny or flirty or anything really that maybe other people wouldn't be comfortable talking about. And if you talk about those things, then I think that helps.
Yeah, that's really interesting because as a non-monogamous couple, us, and a monogamous couple, you guys, infidelity is the same thing.
Really?
Yeah,
interesting.
it's the same thing because for us, it's not one specific act or anything. It's when you're consciously hiding
Holding
something. You've acted in a way that you wouldn't want your partner to know about. You've behaved in a way that you wouldn't act that way in front of your partner. You consciously would sort of hide that. And that's always our that's our line, really.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of thing becomes so much more easier to understand when you have been with somebody for a long time, because you've got to have that understanding. You've got to have that sort of connected sort of consciousness with your partner as well, that you would know that it would be too far, I think. I just think that's really interesting because it's not one act.
No, it isn't. Right. And I guess like,
oh no. Yeah. It's
historically, like the monogamous relationships, it would be like if you go and have sex with someone who's not the person you're married to, that would be like the hard line. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, no, ours is more of, the consciously keeping something from someone else.
Yeah.
And that could be a whole lot of things.
You also said something before about flirting, which is really interesting. You mentioned like, oh yeah, like if I was chatting with someone or flirting with somebody. Right. And, I think that's really cool because it's like, there feels like even though you are monogamous, there's still an openness to, being able to flirt with somebody, or if somebody flirts with you, smile back. Like it's not this sort of intense, like that's not an attack on your relationship with each other. It's like you understand that that's human nature as well, because it is normal to bounce off the energy that people give you. And I mean, you two are incredibly vibrant, vivacious, and I will say, I'm not sure if the video of this is going to go up, but you are a very attractive couple. And, there might be times where somebody is like giving you some interest and, I'm wondering like, it seems like that's allowed, like you would sort of allow each other to sort of enjoy in that a little bit within the realms of your own safety.
I mean, you probably don't remember this, but one of the like very early on in our relationship, I think you said, you remember?
No, you should say it, but I think I do. Yeah.
We were talking about flirting. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember her sentence was, flirting's the best.
Oh, I didn't think you were going to say that. No.
No. What did you think I was going to say?
No, keep going. I'll tell you what I was thinking after.
Well, no, you said flirting's the best, and I was kind of like, oh, it was like this okay thing where, okay, yeah, that was like I think so too. But
your permission slip, like here you go.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was just like we were kind of both in agreement, like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm glad that that's fun, right? I mean, not that we go out seeking that. I mean, it makes it sound like that's all we want to do, but it's just I remember that thing. What did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say this time that we went to the Beehive in Boston, and we went and like saw a show with friends, and it was the very early days, and like it was really loud and there's music happening or whatever, and I was sitting at a table with friends, and somebody came up to you because you're so smoking hot and was like, my friend is really interested in getting your number, and you came back and told me about it because you were just like, you see that like woman over there at that table, like that's the person I'm here with, but thank you. And you came back and told me also you're like you're a firefighter now, so
it's a lot.
Like man,
absolute heartthrob for all
seriously,
of our listeners.
like he's walking around, and like he just did this race where he pushed all three of our adorable children in a stroller in his gear.
Oh, come on, mate, come on.
It's like what calendars are made of. That's why they exist, and so,
oh boy.
But seriously, like I am 1000% certain that people are checking you out on the regular, and that's great. And like, you should see them looking at you and like, that's great. I mean, I don't know.
What we regularly will tell each other. I certainly tell you all the time. We talk about if I saw you
I know
in a bar.
True. It's true.
I mean, and we kind of like go, and then dot dot dot. However you want to continue that, but
yeah.
We regularly tell each other.
Just to clarify, so if you saw Christina in a bar by herself, you would hit on Christina, or you would watch her be hit on?
No, meaning what I mean is that if I didn't know her, and I, that's usually where we're coming from, right?
Definitely.
If like we didn't know each other.
Yeah, like he said that while we were eating sushi before we got on this podcast today. Yeah. He was like, you would be the thing that I would just be like, and that's what I think too.
Yeah.
But Christina, so when that person was hitting on Andrew in front of you, and then Andrew came over and said, this person just tried to hit on me, what were your feelings in that moment? Was it like jealousy, or did you love the compliment of like, you're with the guy that other people want?
Definitely the latter. I mean, yeah.
That's how, and it's always fun.
Yeah.
Like I say always. Not like these happen. Not like these things happen all the time. But
I mean,
don't be humble.
I just mean to say that, like, when people would come up to you, it's a fun thing to then have you come to me.
Big
right?
time. And also, like, I'm like, it's not even like I'm looking at these people thinking like, God, I would so much rather like go home with this guy that's hitting on me at the bar. It's like, no, I would actually, honest to God, rather go home with the hottie that I came here with. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
There is just a genuine, sincere connection. Want. Yeah.
Totally. But there is also that it sounds like it's kind of nice when either of you is getting recognized and seen by somebody else.
I think so.
Big time.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot, especially because Andrew's like really become much more muscular since we moved here because of his job. No, I mean, it's like, I loved you before and I love you now. And like, I love you in any iteration, but like, seriously, people will come and be like, oh my God. Or like, it's, yes, friends of ours who have seen him. If you guys came into our kitchen now and he was standing in there, you would just be like, you are like a sculpture.
Oh,
what do you?
Yeah, we're gonna come for a visit. Don't worry.
It's nice. It's nice. It's really nice. It is nice to be recognized in front of each other, and like we're both keeping it up, you know?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, that's it. It's like it's valuing that appreciation for the other partner. Like at what point though does it kind of step over into like, okay, this is not okay? So say everyone's like, Andrew's walking down the street, everyone's like, oh, who's this hottie? At what point is it like if the woman comes up to you and goes, hey, like, how you doing, firefighter boy? Like, what's the, like, where's the line, Christina, for you where it becomes inappropriate?
I don't know. I mean, like,
we're not out that much.
Well,
makes it sound like this happens every day.
No, but yeah, if that happened, I suppose like hypothetically the line, I don't know. I think I would just like let him enjoy himself for a while.
Like if Andrew was like, hey, I'll give you a ride in my fire truck.
He can't do that, babe. Hang on, what are we talking about? This is Liam's fantasies. Okay, you need to just just relax.
Okay.
This is Liam's fantasy.
What I'm feeling here with you both is it feels like you just naturally, even though you are monogamous, I can feel the compersion. Like you've got that compersion bubbling like for each other. Like there is that sort of, it's not a threat for somebody else to find your partner attractive. In fact, it's nice. It's validating. It's like beautiful. And that's something that we feel very much as well with each other. And it's really interesting because, you share that, but then also say like, but I don't want to sort of necessarily be with other people, which is great and beautiful. And it's really interesting because when Liam and I first opened up our relationship, and probably, not many people might know this, but we were actually led by our compersion for each other. Like I actually wasn't thinking about going and hooking up with other people. That wasn't really what I felt drawn to do. It was actually just this compersive aspect of like, wow, like I would like love to see Liam in his element and like connection and somebody being really taken by him and like I mean, like taken aback by him, but
Yeah.
you know,
Taken by me.
yeah. Anyway, I was
Everything.
like, you know, it's just really interesting because, you know, it's beautiful to also, you know, it's like on a different sort of degree of it to have that to not be threatened by that, to be like, yeah, like I'm with someone really awesome and people are going to be into them. But that doesn't necessarily also mean that we're going to like take it that way, you know?
Right.
Right. I mean, the one thing is that people have always been into Christina.
That's true.
There's just a draw
Totally.
to her. And it's not just what I said about seeing her at a bar and then, oh, I want that. There's just people are really drawn to her. So the fact that was always there since the beginning, it's not a new thing. And so there's less of there's really not that threatening aspect to it if it's always been there.
That's a good point. There were many times where my generosity of spirit was misconstrued for falling in love with people.
Right.
And I didn't know that that's what people were understanding.
You fell in love with each other and the people that you were at the point in time. And often people can feel threatened in a monogamous relationship that, you know, the things and the qualities that attracted you to each other are going to start to attract other people, you know, and then that will be the threat to the relationship. And I've certainly felt that in monogamous relationships that I've had in the past, is that I felt that my partner was like, okay, well, you can work out, but not too much, you know, like I don't want to, you know, it's like that. And that can be really negative.
Mm-hmm.
Very negative.
I think there were a couple moments really early on when I had to double check. And because she's so generous and people are so drawn to her that I don't remember a specific, but I think I probably had to double check. Are you looking for something more, or is what you're giving me the same as everybody else? And maybe I should not be too invested.
Yeah. I remember there was clarification like that too. And then I think like once you just realized, I mean, you just believed me when I told you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is what it is. This is who I am. I am very bad at being untrue and like not who I am. And so
you're the worst liar.
Terrible. I can't do it. So bad. Yeah. So like the highest priority of me in all of my relationships is that my honesty and sincerity that I give freely is something that's believed. And so that has been something that's sustained us the whole time.
Yeah.
Like
it's a very grounding thing for me because I know that what she's saying is true to herself.
Yeah, you're completely in your integrity and your truth.
I mean, even your humor is so
true.
pure.
I can't make jokes. I'm so bad at making jokes. I just like, I am. Yeah.
I mean, the Firehouse humor is so.
I can't hang. It's bad. I mean, there was one phrase that I said to someone, I made a joke because they all kind of like joke at each other's expense, which I am horrible at. I'm like the person that can uplift everyone and like be honest and like, I don't know. And I tried to make like a self-deprecating, it wasn't even self-deprecating joke, but like that sort of style. And it just bombed. And I just am so bad at it. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe there's a magnetism because people are like, that thing is bright and vibrant and true. And So that's why there's a sense of security. Like the person that I ultimately chose to be a partner in life believes that and knows that. And if that if that falters, then there's a problem and we have to figure out how to get it back to that status quo where like where I show up and where you show up is the same level of pure truth.
Well, Christina and Andrew, it has been such a pleasure to have this chat with you. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours.
I could talk to you all day, all night.
So we're going to have a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4 and all this. But it is so beautiful. It has always been so beautiful to witness your connection to each other. And I know that people listening to this conversation will feel inspired by your relationship and your communication. And I think you are just a wonderful example of a beautiful, committed relationship where you honor each other, you honor yourselves, you have a wonderful family who you care deeply about. And yeah, I really feel very thankful to have you in our lives.
Absolutely. It's just so wonderful to chat with you both again. And I think a lot of people are going to really connect with this conversation. And I'm going to share it with a lot of my, I share the podcast with different monogamous friends, but I'm going to absolutely blast this one out to all of my monogamous friends. You two are a beautiful example of open communicative relationship and connection and deep love and appreciation for each other as individuals and your life together. And yeah, we just love you guys.
Oh, we love
I
you
love
too.
you too. We miss you
Thank
dearly.
you.
And
Thank you.
I'm still grappling with you having us on alongside all the New York Times bestselling authors and porn stars, but whatever.
Maybe we'll have to get a shirtless photo of you, Andrew, for the cover photo.
Exactly.
For
There
this.
you go. That's
We
where
need
we should take this.
We need the firefighter calendar shot.
I love it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Evolving Love podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback and support fuels our passion, and together we're building a community of curiosity, kindness, and growth.
Subscribe, comment, and let's keep the conversation going.